do that. Brilliant. So can everybody hear that that's being recorded? Can you just put your thumbs up because I didn't get my normal notification. Looks like it is. So
Yeah.
that's news. Great. A very, very warm welcome to today's Live Well Live webinar. We're very luckily joined by our guest presenter, Rupa, who will introduce herself in a moment. I am Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with the Boots Online Doctor Lifestyle Medicine team. And very happy to be here with you today. I'm also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And we bring these webinars to you as many Mondays as we can manage throughout the year. We switch them over, or we've been attempting to switch them over to a Tuesday when there's bank holidays. We're going to take a break from the webinars over the sort of August month, from the very last Monday in July through to the end of August. There will be no webinars, but we will send you a series of emails just to keep in touch. And we'll be back in September. Anyway, that's a long way off. We've still got all of June and all of July to get through first. We've got some great topics. And today we're going to be looking all about weight management around perimenopause and menopause because there's such an important topic and something that we know a lot of women have difficulties around this time in terms of maintaining their weight, which is why it's such an important topic for us to bring to the webinar. Just to remind you, if you have any questions that you've brought along with you today, please put them straight into the question and answer box if you can find it, the Q&A box. If for any reason you're struggling with that, please pop them into the chat box and we'll have a look and see if we can find them. We generally will share a few slides. We've got sort of around 10 slides to share with you today around this topic, this very important topic. And then when we finish those slides, we will bring ourselves to answering all of your questions. So if something crops up for you during the webinar and during the slide share, do feel free to ask that question. We have everyone's cameras off because the general consensus is that most people prefer that, which is understandable. And if you prefer to be anonymous, you can change your participant name to anonymous if you prefer. It is really up to you. But we love to hear from you. We love to hear your thoughts. We love your questions. If there's anything you'd like to know from us today, don't hesitate to ask us. If you have a very medical question that's all about your current health situation, we'll likely just direct you back to your healthcare provider because that would not be safe to be talking about in the context of a webinar. So without further ado, we're also joined today by our IT support. So thank you so much for being here. We have Rabdino here with us, and I believe we have someone else, sorry, I can't remember your name, training as well. We have fantastic support from the Boots Online Doctor wider team as well. So Rupa, I'll stop talking. Over to you.
Thank you, Ruth. Hi, everybody. My name is Rupa. I'm a pharmacist who works for Boots Online Doctor, and my passion is the menopause. So I lead the service at Boots with another GP, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's great for pharmacists to be involved in this area of specialty. So great to be here with Ruth today and the rest of you. And I'm looking forward to the webinar.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so Rupa, you're going to tell us a little bit about this whole perimenopause, menopause area, why this is such an important time of life in terms for women and what's going on that might get in the way in terms of weight management.
Yeah, so the menopause is something that we're talking about a lot now, and we have been for the last good few years, which is a relief. There's lots of information out there for women now, and some of it can be quite confusing because there's so much of it, and it's hard to know what to do sometimes if you're having treatment or you're not having treatment. The menopause, as the name implies, meno meaning monthly and pause means to stop. So this is when a woman's period stops for 12 months or more. You've reached the menopause at that stage, and then you reach your postmenopausal after that. Now, the age in the UK is around the age of 51, but that's not set in stone. It can be very much before that, or it can be after that as well. So there's lots of women who still have very normal periods after this age. But what's interesting is that the menopause has lots of different symptoms. There's over 30 symptoms of the menopause, and the classic ones being hot flushes, night sweats, mood changes, memory problems, mostly retaining information and concentrating. And a lot of women at work are affected by the cognitive side of the menopause symptoms. Vaginal dryness is very, very common. As is low libido and skin changes. Those are just a few of what I've named, but there is a whole host of symptoms. I will actually link in a questionnaire towards the end of the webinar that will give you information about all the different types of symptoms that you can get. And perhaps if you are seeking help or treatment from your doctor, you can take that questionnaire as a tool and describe what you're suffering from, which is quite helpful to a lot of women. Now, the perimenopause is quite is can be quite a confusing phase. The perimenopause is the transition into the menopause, and I like to call it the puberty of the menopause. So this is where it happens at around the that you're in your 40s and your mid 40s. So women can be having very normal periods, or they can start to change. So they start becoming more irregular or sporadic, but the symptoms of the menopause start to occur, and they can be occurring for quite a few years as such. Um, and a lot of women do ask if they need a blood test to diagnose the perimenopause and the menopause. And the simple answer is it actually just depends on your age and what your symptoms are. So after the age of 45, you don't need a blood test because your hormones are fluctuating, literally going up and down, and it's very hard to get a result that definitely uh, defines that you've got perimenopause or menopause. But before the age of 45, it is known that you do get a test done just to see where you're at with your levels, and it's called a follicular stimulating hormone test, which looks for those hormone levels. But the menopause and the perimenopause is very much a clinical diagnosis rather than a biochemical one. So it's all based on your symptoms that you're experiencing, which is why that questionnaire comes in quite handy um, to take and use. Now, the perimenopause stage can last for up to 4 to 8 years, around your mid 40s, but it can occur very much before that. So, women before the age of 45 who suffer from these symptoms, it's known as the early menopause, and some women's periods stop before then as well. If your periods stop before the age of 40, it's known as primary ovarian insufficiency, and that seeks a lot more investigations with blood tests and all sorts that need more specialized care. But it can occur for sure. Um, there is other reasons why your ovaries stop working. And you're no longer producing an estrogen or progesterone or hormones, is either because you've had surgery. So sometimes when you've had certain surgery like a hysterectomy, you will be induced into the menopause automatically, which means there is no production of any hormones. Genetics can play a factor, and certain disease states can play a factor as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I think we have a poll that we're going to just release. Brilliant. Thank you. We also have Julia as well as Rabdina here, so thank you both. Just to let you know, the polls are completely anonymous. We know that you've answered. We don't know who's answering what. It really is just to bring you to some level of attention, to have a little bit of a think about what's going on for you, but also helps us understand what's going on in the room today, in terms of how people are experiencing the menopause or those perimenopause symptoms, and really what your challenges that you're facing right now are. It sort of helps make the webinar a bit more realistic and in tune with who's here. So that is always really helpful for us because we want to make it relevant, as relevant as we possibly can. Um, so I can see we've got sort of so far about 50% of people in the perimenopause, Rupa,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and 20% in menopause, 20% post-menopause. And not surprisingly, there's sort of about 15% of people who are a bit uncertain as to where
Yeah.
they are. And that we would expect that, wouldn't we? So thank you. That's really helpful. And of the people who've answered the poll so far, around 60% of you experiencing weight gain for no real reason or that you're aware of. You're losing a bit of motivation, got a bit
Mm.
of emotional eating going on. noticing those creepings of cravings creeping in, and hormonal imbalances are really perhaps making a big difference to your weight
Yeah.
management. And so your priorities so far from everybody who's answered weight loss, interestingly, has come up as 88% of a priority,
Mm.
reducing the symptoms for 30% of you, increasing your energy for around 50% of you. That's such an important element, isn't it? Because energy is, well, if we don't have energy, it's really hard to focus on all of this.
Yeah. A lot of women suffer with fatigue and low energy levels during this time, which can be, it's horrible.
It can
It's
be
not a
quite
nice.
debilitating, can't it?
Yeah, it can. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you. That's really helpful for us to see. So I wanted to talk a little bit about estrogen because we know estrogen is one of the hormones that is adversely or quite significantly affected during this perimenopause, menopause stage. And we know that during menopause, we get a decline in estrogen. This is very normal happening. And that is one of the things that we know from looking at all of the research that can lead to us eating more. So when your estrogen levels start to fall, you are going to notice that you're extra hungry and also that your sense of satisfaction and fullness from the food that you've always eaten will shift. And it's really interesting. So there's a real link here to insulin resistance. We know that when our estrogen levels fall, that we are much more prone to having a loss of sensitivity to estrogen, to insulin. When we have a loss of sensitivity to insulin, we're much more likely to accumulate fat around our middles. And we can also have a redistribution of our fat that was already on our body towards shifting to visceral fat storage, which we know is linked to health issues. So this is really important. We know that women at this stage are much more at risk of health conditions such as type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Interestingly enough, the good news continues. I'm sorry, everyone. But what we also know is that as our estrogen levels begin to fall, we're going to have a decline in our muscle mass. So we'll have some loss of muscle, and that will affect the amount of calories that we can eat without gaining weight. It will reduce our basal metabolic rate. So, our basal metabolic rate are the number of calories that we can eat in a day to maintain a healthy weight or to lose weight or to gain weight. It helps us to pinpoint our sort of calorie requirement. We don't love calories as a thing because not all calories are equal, and we talk about that in other webinars, but it sort of is helpful in the context of understanding the physiology of what's going on at this time. You're also likely, as I said, to have an increase in your hunger, and you may notice that your appetite's all over the place. You'll have mood changes, you're going to feel potentially fatigued. A lot of you, 50% of you, have said you're experiencing fatigue. We know when we're fatigued, one of the things that we do almost naturally is reach for something to give us a boost. And quite often it's a snack or a cup of coffee with some sugar in or some sort of stimulant to just give us that boost because we can feel really rotten. We also know that estrogen reducing can increase the production of ghrelin, and that's our hunger hormone. So we're going to feel a lot more hungry or potentially more hungry. And it is sort of like not a brilliantly happy moment in our whole physiology, really. It can really create a lot of disturbance and imbalance. So I think we want to explain this to you because sometimes all of these feelings and emotions and the hunger and the loss of appetite, satiety, and our body fat redistribution is going on, but we don't really understand why. And actually, it's really important. If we understand why, then we can get some sort of plan and strategy in place to do something about it. So, one of the things that we also need to be thinking about is what's going on in terms of our stress hormones. Estrogen is very important, and our adrenal glands are really important at this point in state in our lives. Or in this life stage. So, we really need to be thinking about what's going on in terms of our adrenal health, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail. So, Rupert, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot to take on board. It's a lot to
It
think
is.
about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, it's the visceral fat and the middle area that starts changing in a lot of women. Sometimes it's a slow change, but sometimes it can be a very fast change. And suddenly you're noticing your clothes aren't fitting as well as they used to. And it affects your confidence and self-esteem. And hopefully we can address it and come up with ways to help everybody who's going through that at the moment. So this decline in estrogen that happens during the menopause, what happens during that time is that it changes the way the body lays down fat. So it's not necessarily that you're gaining weight, it's just the distribution of the fat changes. So from being around your hips and your thighs, unfortunately, goes into your waist area, explaining that middle area, middle nuisance, as I like to call it, actually. And there's a loss in muscle mass as well. So this visceral fat is stored deep inside the abdomen, and it surrounds some of the organs like the liver and your intestines, for example. Now, normally, without the menopause, this visceral fat normally makes up around 5 to 8% of body fat. But during the menopause, it actually increases to 15 to 20%, which is a lot. Um, and it's very different to subcutaneous fat, which sits just below your skin. So this means that you're at risk of weight gain, and there's a change in your body composition with your basal metabolic rate, which that's the rate at which we burn fat at rest. So it's likely to drop, which means that you're going to end up gaining more weight. Now, as a guide, if you are more apple-shaped than pear-shaped, then you're more likely to have high levels of visceral fat. So you could use that as a guide to see where things are going. Now, genetics obviously plays a factor in it as well. So if you've got parents or close relatives who carry a lot of weight around their abdomen, you're likely to have that too and carry that weight as well to some certain extent. Now, during the menopause, our metabolism slows down and it's affected because we're losing the muscle mass, which means that when the body loses muscle mass, it causes the rate at which the body uses calories to reduce as well. So our calorie intake is very important. Um, and Ruth is going to go into that, I'm sure, in a bit more detail as the webinar progresses. But the good news is that there is things that we can do to help with this. It's not all doom and gloom, but the important thing is to know is that when we're in our 20s and 30s, things are a lot different and simpler. We can't be doing those things when we're in our 40s and our 50s. So it's very important to start incorporating these changes and be more active and look at your diet in general and see what we can do to help.
Yeah, that's very much it, isn't it? It's sort of like just understanding what's going on and taking a bit more
Yeah.
control back.
Yep.
So there's a few other things that are going on in this whole perimenopause, menopausal stage of life. So we know that sleep is one of the key factors that can really become dysregulated. Poor sleep, hot flushes at night, and just general sleep difficulties. Research shows that if we're getting less than 5 hours of sleep or a night or less regularly, that can on its own contribute to weight gain. So optimal sleep, we would be saying, is at least 6 hours a night, on average every night, up to around 9 hours of night. I think we almost have to put some priority into how we get some better sleep. We've got a whole webinar on sleep coming up. So if that's something that's really affecting you, in a couple of weeks' time, we're talking all about sleep because it's such an important factor for weight management.
Good.
Stress is really an absolute key to get on top of. We may have a bit like you were saying, Rupert, things change. So in our 30s and 40s, our ability to sort of pivot and cope and for our physiology to cope is
Mm.
very different.
Yep.
So we could be under just the same amount of stress when we hit that sort of perimenopause, menopause stage, but suddenly our ability to cope with that level of stress shifts dramatically.
Correct.
So, it is a really difficult time for us, I would say, generally. So it might be that we can't change the stress that we're experiencing. It might just be that that is our life. I think what we can change, though, is how we manage that
Mm.
stress. And
Mm.
this is really important because we want to support our adrenals, because our adrenal glands, which are a couple of little kidney shaped glands that sit, no, they're a little couple of walnut-shaped glands that sit on top of our kidneys, will produce a little bit of cortisol.
Mhm.
And the importance of that is if our adrenals are functioning well, they will take over a small production of estrogen. It'll be a much less significantly rich source of estrogen, but it will be enough to give us a little bit of a continuing lift. So, this is really important. So, we want to really support the whole sort of orchestra of our hormones. Our hormones all work together. So we want to be supporting everything to be as balanced as they possibly can be. And this is a really important stage and something to really put some attention into. We can't always get rid of that stress, as I was saying, but we can take a little bit more of a sort of really focused view. If we know stress is something that's tripping us up or that is a part and parcel of our life, and we're noticing that we feel a sense of a loss of resilience, then it's time to do something about that stress. Unfortunately, we also are going to be running our stress webinar next week, I believe. So we'll remind you about that. It's really worth thinking about what you can do to manage your stress differently. And then, as we've already said, insulin sensitivity really shifts. This is one of the key factors in that increased visceral fat and the whole link with increasing insulin resistance. And this is one of the things that drives females into a situation where they are at much greater risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. We know that there is an increasing sort of balancing out of the risk of heart disease in women now in their sort of 60s as well. So we know that this is a really important thing for us to be considering. And that whole inflammation that comes from insulin resistance will be part of the triggering element. We can do a lot about that. Signs of insulin resistance are things like fatigue, increased hunger, weight gain, difficulty losing weight, and possibly even frequent urination. So, if those are things that are happening for you, then it may be worth thinking, okay, what's going on in terms of my hormone balance? Is there something I can do in terms of my insulin sensitivity? And if you think you are struggling with a loss of insulin sensitivity, then follow something like the core meal plan and have a listen into those early webinars that we run on how to eat and what to eat, because they can be really helpful at getting you rebalancing that insulin level and really helping to calm down your loss of insulin sensitivity. And finally, I just wanted to point us to thinking about what's going on in our guts, because there's a really big link between our gut health, the health of the gut microbiome, and our hormones. And what we now know is that there's a really concerted shift in the balance of the beneficial bacteria with the decline in estrogen. So, again, this is something we need to pay some attention to. We need to support our beneficial bacteria to really thrive at this time. And we can do that by really eating those sort of like high fibrous foods. We're going to talk about foods and what we can do in a minute. But you might notice that you're experiencing more bloating or that you're suddenly having some difficulty tolerating foods that you've always been able to eat. And that can be an indication that perhaps your gut is really having quite a negative impact from going through the menopause. There's lots we can do about that. We've actually created a whole webinar about the gut microbiome, so that may be worth coming to. But we can, if you've got any questions around this, do feel free to ask them in the Q&A section, because it's so important to consider that. And then I finally just wanted to talk a little bit about thyroid health, because we know that for many women, this can be a really sort of significant shift because of what's going on in the gut microbiome. We can often see connections between menopause and thyroid function. And there's a massive overlap between symptoms. And I thought that was why it's really important to highlight this in particular, because sometimes we put all of our symptoms that we're experiencing down to purely the menopause, and sometimes it's the thyroid that is also causing mayhem and chaos. So look at all the symptoms on the slide. If you're experiencing these regularly, then it would be worth just checking with your GP and getting a thyroid check. We also know that there is often very unrecognized levels of thyroid problems going on for women. Women are 5 to 20 times more likely to have thyroid problems than men. So it's a really important thing to be thinking about. We know that a change in our gut microbiome can be influential in triggering autoimmune conditions, and thyroid conditions can often be of an autoimmune nature. And if they're left undiagnosed, then it is a greater risk factor for problems with our heart health, also our bone health. And those are things that we also need to be putting a lot of attention into at this stage of life. So don't want to be all doom and gloom, but there's huge amounts that we can do, which is why we think it's really important to be talking about all of these things. So Rupert, over to
Yep.
you. Does that
Yep. That was so well explained. And I'm so impressed with all the webinars you've got for the individual
sorry,
topics. So,
I feel like it was a selling shop. It wasn't at
oh
all.
no, it's not. It's important because you
Yeah,
can dive deeper into those topics. So it's really
yeah.
important to understand that. So well done for those. I think I'm going to attend some of those as well. For sure. I haven't done it yet. So great stuff, Ruth. Now, I'm really glad that you touched on the stress aspect of the menopause and how it affects your health and your weight, because I think that's something that sometimes people in general just don't have the time to actually sort out, but it's something that's so vital to sort out. Now, cortisol and there's another hormone called adrenaline. These are your fight or flight hormones. So when you are under stress, these hormones are released and they affect your body in all sorts of ways. It increases your heart rate, it increases your blood pressure, and it also increases your sugar levels. And what happens is if you've got chronic levels of these hormones being released, it actually affects your mood, so your concentration and your health in general. So we don't want that. We don't want that. And some of us are very used to being stressed all the time. And a lot of the guidelines now for the menopause, so NICE guidelines, who are our regulators, really encourage menopausal women to seek either talking therapies, cognitive behavioral therapies, or some form of therapy, whether it's listening to apps as well. There's lots of apps out there to help combat the stress and anxiety of life, but something to start incorporating into our daily routine, whether you're going for walks, for example. You can listen to some of these apps, and the more you listen to it, the more it becomes a habit of listening to it and actually taking in the information and um, using it into these situations that cause stress. Emotional stress as well is something that probably needs addressing and rectified as well, which is very different to the everyday routine kind of stress that we have, like going to work, cooking, all of this kind of thing, looking after family, children, etc. The list goes on. But I do encourage stress management to be a vital part of the menopause stage. Now, testosterone is another hormone, and a lot of people associate testosterone with being a male hormone, but it's important in women as well. And this tends to drop as well during the menopause stage of life. But funny enough, women have a little bit more of the testosterone level compared to estrogen and progesterone. There is more supply in there. Now, testosterone replacement does exist, and it's mostly used for license for use of low libido. But some women find that it does help with other cognitive side of the symptoms like memory, retaining information, and energy levels as well. And it's something that's quite specialized, so your doctors may not be able to help you with that aspect. But some of the specialized doctors who know a bit more about the menopause, or even someone in your surgery who's a menopause specialist, might be able to give you a bit more information around it. But what happens is when the testosterone levels do start to drop, this leads to loss of muscle mass and a higher fat mass. So again, it's something that can easily cause weight gain.
Thank you. That's really interesting, isn't it? It's
Mm.
fascinating.
It is
It is that orchestra of the hormones, isn't it? It's such an important, it's important to think about things cohesively.
completely.
It's all about one thing. Rupert, are you okay
Yeah.
to think through this?
Yeah, I mean, this is just summarized. I think it's a nice jigsaw puzzle here, what we've talked about so far. We're going to talk about the food aspect in a bit more detail shortly, but the sleep you've mentioned, Ruth, which is vital. Sleep, stress, things that we probably neglect is something that needs addressing. And actually, you will find that the small steps you take towards improving your sleep and your stress levels is actually going to make a lot of difference. So I would really, really encourage women to sort that out basically, and see the full effect of it and how much it helps you with your hormones and well-being in general. Physical activity, we're going to talk about. I am not a great fan of physical activity whatsoever. I have to put a gun to my head to get any sort of exercise. I don't know if there's women out there that are like me. There's women who are very active and very good at keeping active, and there's someone like me who has to struggle. And as I'm now in my 40s, I have to really be vigilant with this, and follow the advice that I give to everybody else. So I will be giving you some information around what you can do around that as well.
That's hilarious, and thank you for being so honest. I think we're pretty, yeah, we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, haven't we? So I think it's, no one is perfect, and we don't
No,
pretend
no.
to be perfect. So, what to eat? This is really important to be thinking about, and especially when we're really struggling to lose weight or wanting to make weight loss something that we put some focus and attention into. So the Women's Health Survey looked at some research and they found the most effective mechanisms for losing weight during menopause is that we need to eat fairly consistently to balance our sex and stress hormones. We want to be thinking about um, persistence, not perfection. And the sort of key areas of eating that become really important is following that sort of low carbohydrate, the low glycemic. They'll have all sorts of terms, but it's more or less the same thing. So low carb, low glycemic, and Mediterranean style of eating. So what does that mean? It means we want protein. We always talk about protein. Lots of research out there now about the importance of protein during menopause. And if you're really struggling with appetite control, or you're struggling with weight loss, or you're struggling with hunger really overwhelming you, or cravings, or just feeling really unbalanced, which we know many of you will and are feeling that way, then you really want to put some attention onto this whole protein story. So, as a rule of thumb, for most of us, we need a minimum of zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. In this whole perimenopause, menopause transition, we can up that. We want to go to at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. We could take it a little bit higher, up to 1.2 grams, maybe even 1.4. So I would suggest you start with wherever you are. And if you're struggling with some of those symptoms that we've talked about already, then really try and put some attention into that protein and just gradually build it up. Work out how much you need a day, break that down into your 3 meals. And then, if that's still not where you need to be and you're still really struggling with fatigue or energy issues or cravings, or your hunger is just not satisfied, try and take it up a little bit more. You also need to make sure you've got those healthy fats on your plate with every meal. So by healthy fats, we mean things like the oily fish, the avocados, the olives, the olive oils, the nuts, the seeds. Have a look at the core meal plan. They're all there for you. There's also a Mediterranean style of eating. So, Julia, if you could share that, that would also be great because you could sort of like mix and match across those two. Carbohydrates, by that I mean the starchy carbohydrates, so things like pasta, bread, rice, those types of things. We want to be a little bit more cautious. We have less wriggle room for those. We want to eat those in moderation. So we don't want to be loading our plates up with pastas and rice, and we don't want to be eating bread several times a day. We really need to be thinking about those foods are the things that we almost use as our energy food. So if we're going to be walking, if we're going to be going to the gym, Reaper, if we're going to be going for a walk or doing some resistance exercise at home, that's where they come in.
Completely, yes.
The vegetables, fantastic. You want to really, really load up. We can really satisfy our appetite by eating loads of vegetables. And with the protein, you want it to be a mixture of plant-based and animal-based proteins. And if you're a vegetarian, that's absolutely fine. Just go for variety. It's really important to get the variety in. Our guts need variety, so it's a really important element. Some research has suggested that a sort of lower carbohydrate diet can really help in terms of the highest, weight loss. So this may be something to really be thinking about. If you're somebody who's an absolute carb lover, maybe try and redress the balance there. That can really help. So, healthy fats, really important. They play a massive role in hormone regulation and balance. So, those omega-3 fats, which are the anti-inflammatory fats, are really important and really beneficial to our cardiovascular health, to our heart health. That's for everyone in the whole population. But it's really important to start putting some attention into making sure you've got those those fats in your diet. You want to really calm inflammation down. Bring a little bit of fat into every meal, sort of like a thumbful of olive oil, just a really small digit of olive oil drizzled over the top of your food can really help. Really interesting, loads of brilliant research around the importance of healthy fats. Lots of oily fish. If you can get the non-farmed variety, it's even better, but the cost goes up and up, doesn't it? So it can be
Mm.
really difficult to manage that. But also tinned fish can be really helpful as well. So salmon, sardines, mackerel, all of those are delicious. The sort of darker skinned fish, they have many more healthy oils in them. Canned tuna, we're not particularly big fans of. We understand that the healthy fats have been extracted in the canning process, so we just want to be having that perhaps as a protein source occasionally, but not using it as our healthy fat source unless it's fresh. And then you can have your seeds, so things like chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, again, can bring in some healthy fats too. Yeah, so there's lots of choice here. So it's just a question of just actually when you look at your plate, just thinking, okay, where are my healthy fats coming from? Could I put some avocado on here? Could I get a bit of olive oil? What could I do? And that can really make a difference. And Rupa, phytoestrogens.
Yeah, phytoestrogens is something that's quite it's becoming popular and quite interesting to know about. So they are chemicals that are found in certain plant foods. And what the good thing about them is that they've got a similar chemical structure to the natural estrogen that's made in our bodies. So if we start incorporating these into our diets, might be having some advantage. So they're known to also help with fat distribution and metabolism. So you could find that they're helping with your weight management in general. And some studies have found that it helps reduce the accumulation of body fat. So what they tend to do is these phytoestrogens, they bind to the estrogen receptors in your body, and they also help balance your hormones out. So examples of the foods that contain phytoestrogens is soy foods like tofu, for example, flax seeds, sesame seeds, and chickpeas. So something to add onto the shopping list for sure. And you could add them into salads, I suppose, couldn't you, Ruth, and have them as or snacks or whatever it is, but it's used, tofu is very popular, so is chickpeas. So something to definitely think about.
Yeah, and I love that tahini. I don't know if you like
Oh,
tahini.
tahini, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
miss tahini. All of
it
those
is.
things are really delicious and easy to add in as well, aren't they? Or
Yep.
make some dressings out of.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to talk a little bit about your favorite
My
subject.
favorite topic. I like talking about it. I just don't like doing it. So I hope that helps. No, I'm gonna I have started, so I'm quite proud of myself. So something physical activity, exercise. Now, when we hit the perimenopause, menopause stage, this becomes non-negotiable, ladies. It's we have to incorporate some sort of activity. Um, and I think it's really, really important that you start doing this in slow steps and start enjoying it in ways that you could enjoy it, basically. So you could have a buddy that you start doing exercise with. You could join a class with someone, a friend, a neighbor, whatever it is. Try to make it enjoyable because if you don't enjoy it, it's already difficult to start exercising like I do, but there's different ways that you can certainly start incorporating that into your routine. So physical activity, exercising, the benefits are quite obvious. Your weight management starts to improve. You may experience some weight loss, which is always a great thing, but also it improves your heart health. It encourages better sleep. It helps with your mood and your cognitive symptoms, and it also supports your bone health, all of which are very, very important during this phase of life. So, what kind of activities are important? First of all, there's strength training. So, this helps build new muscle and also helps increase your metabolic rate. So, these examples of these strength training exercises are squats, bicep curls, and ankle taps. And you can use weights as well, because that would help with the muscle mass in general and tone your body. So this is really important for women who want to lose weight and also change the shape of their body as well. And there's lots of different exercises you can look on YouTube as well, that you can do. And it's important to probably do this maybe 2 or 3 times in the week. Also, there's cardio and aerobic exercise, and this is what gets your heart pumping. And examples include walking or cycling, running, if you like. Dancing is great, so you could even join a dance class, salsa dance classes, and even swimming. Swimming is very good form of cardio exercising and quite nice to do as well. Now, it's recommended that you do cardio for about 150 minutes a week. So, however you want to incorporate that, that's up to you. Um, Also, restorative exercise. So, this is things like yoga and Pilates. So, what this does is nurtures your muscles that you're using in all the strength and the cardio exercises, and also maintains your muscle mass and your strength in general. So lots of different varieties, lots of different ways you can do it. I think it's really important to make it fun, um, and bring as many people as you want into your regime and exercise regime, and take it from there.
Yeah, and I was thinking actually we've just got a whole new group of exercises. So I don't know, Rabdino, or do you know if you can share a link to the exercise videos that have been created
Oh, excellent.
by
Yeah,
our
that would be good.
doctor?
Yeah.
They're great because they are for anyone at any level. So
Yeah. Oh, good.
beginners through to people who are a little bit more used to exercise. So we've got a link. I'm sure we can share that hopefully. So do have a look. It should be in all of the information that we've got available to share.
Okay.
So yeah, just finally, just a thought about intermittent fasting, and I was looking at the science behind fasting the other day. So this is very topical for me in my brain, so that's helpful. Um, Fasting can be something to consider, and I can see there's lots of questions people are asking about the weight loss medications. We'll pick up on those in a minute. So thank you for asking those.
Mm.
But just thinking about what we can do without taking weight loss medications, there's a huge amount just following that core meal plan, following the Mediterranean meal plan, maybe putting a little bit of intermittent fasting can really help. So, intermittent fasting are things such as there are a couple of approaches. So, one has become very popular recently with Michael Mosley's approach to
Mm.
alternate day fasting, or the 5-2, where you sort of drop your calories to around 800 calories a day for a couple of days a week, and then eat a normal amount of calories on the other days. So you would need to know what your caloric intake should be to get that right. Otherwise, we find that some people will drop their calories really well on those 2 or 3 days and then overeat, unfortunately, on the other days, which means that the net effect at the end of the week is they might have maintained their weight, which actually in some situations can be really positive anyway. At least it's not weight gain, which is what we're hoping to prevent generally. The other thing that you can do is that whole intermittent fasting where you can just actually start with a 12-hour overnight fast. And there's lots of health benefits associated with just cutting out 12 hours and having that sort of really good gap overnight. So you could almost just say that the fridge is closed at 7:30, the kitchen's closed, and it doesn't reopen until 7:30 the next morning. That's so simple. And really, for most of us, there is no reason why we shouldn't do that, and lots of reasons why we should. It can really help just to really help to establish that insulin sensitivity. It can really help to reduce hunger, and it can really help when we get that insulin sensitivity working for us. We can really notice the difference between our energy, getting rid of fatigue, really helping with cravings. So it's really important. The other thing that we can do, all of us, is make sure that we really balance our plates so well when we eat a meal that we don't need to snack in between those meals. And actually, if we can get rid of that snack attack and the cravings in between meals and just go for a gap between 4 and 5 hours, that will really help our digestion. It will really help our insulin sensitivity. And that again will really help to reduce that whole inflammatory situation that's going on. So there are simple things that we can do, and it doesn't have to be really complicated. And I think that's really important because we feel quite overwhelmed at times, don't we? So
Yeah.
we want to get rid of that sense of overwhelm that you might be feeling. So go for really simple changes that can make a huge difference. So we've got a couple of things that we want to share with you. One is a poll, and we'll give you a couple of minutes to look at the poll. We're interested to know what you might do differently based on being here today or what you've already considered doing in terms of your sort of eating styles and what you might be thinking about increasing or reducing. So great. Thank you so much. Again, this is completely anonymous. Resistance exercise, I think that is an absolute non-negotiable. Rupert, I'm going to hold you to task now because it is non-negotiable. And
It
actually,
is.
I think we've had this conversation before, Rupert.
We have, I mention it every time in every
We're
webinar. I
definitely
still
going
haven't improved.
I'm definitely going to be holding you to task, everyone. So
Okay.
don't worry.
That's, yeah,
That's
that's
going
fine.
to happen.
The next webinar, I'll report back what I've been doing.
Yes, please
I
do.
promise.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So lots of you, 70% of you are going to be focusing on that protein, great to hear. Boosting healthy fats, 50% of you, brilliant. Reducing starchy carbs, brilliant, 50% of you. 21% of you thinking about some intermittent fasting, great. 60% of you, Rupert, we can put you on there as well, going to be bringing in that resistance exercise. That's something I've really worked to build in over the
Oh,
last 6 months to a year.
well done.
I really enjoy it, so that's a bonus. One of the things I haven't got yet, but I'm thinking about getting is a weighted vest.
Oh, okay.
That when you walk, you're actually putting some extra resistance in.
That's a very good idea.
So, and that's simple, isn't it? I mean, obviously you have to buy it in the first place, but you don't have to pay for a monthly gym
Oh,
membership.
I like that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I'm
I
going to
read
do
that.
that then.
You're going to do that. Brilliant.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, and that's self-care. I'm really excited to see that a lot of you
Yeah.
thinking about boosting your self-care.
Yep.
Really important.
Yep.
Yeah, good. Well done. Now, finally, we just want to share a feedback link to a feedback form that we've created. We're interested in just hearing from you how your experience was with the webinar and whether you've been coming along or listening to any of the podcasts. So, yeah, exactly, Lisa. You can use a rucksack with
I
extra.
like that idea as well.
I have actually filled a rucksack with a
Mm.
stone of stones.
Oh,
But it is actually quite
fantastic.
heavy. But I thought, well, that's quite motivational, isn't it? Like, actually, a stone of stones is really interesting. I was even thinking, yeah, all sorts of weird things around that. Um, so, phytoestrogens, we're going to come to your questions. I can see some interesting ones.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing the slides. No, I'm not. I just want to hang on before I do that. I'm going to just annoy myself. Now I'm really getting myself a bit lost here. Okay, just to remind you when the next, are we still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Mm,
I think we all are.
I can't see very much now. Okay, so the next webinars coming up are here on the screen. I hope I've shared that with you. If I haven't, no, I haven't. Let's just share that quickly. These are the next webinars coming up. Just so you know, we've got some dates here. Sorry for that. Press the wrong button. We're human. We're live. These
Yep.
things happen. We're now going to stop sharing slides for definite, and we're going to come to your questions. Rupert, do you want me to dive in and ask you a question?
Yes, yes, yes.
Cool. Alrighty, what are we going to start? Where are we going to start? Lots of we go
It's the
GLP.
Wegovy ones, yeah, there's loads
Yeah,
of them.
should we
Ruth, you're
try
the
it?
expert with the Wegovy and
All
Manjaro.
right. Well, we'll give it a go. So somebody is saying they've been on Wegovy, which is one of the GLP-1 medications. This is not a webinar specifically about GLP-1
Mm.
medications, but we will pick up because we know a lot of people are using those medications. So you've not lost any weight for 3 weeks and you're feeling like maybe you've hit a plateau. Plateaus are really common and they happen whether you're taking a weight loss medication or not. They're just part and parcel of a weight loss journey. And if you're losing reasonable amounts of weight at any point in that journey, you will hit a plateau. So this is true for anyone on a weight loss journey. They're very normal. In my opinion, from looking at all the research, they're actually there to help us.
Mhm.
One of the things that happens during our weight changes over life is we have things called set points. So we start off with a set point, and if we gain weight, then our set point will increase to the new gained weight level. So a plateau, we believe, is our body recalibrating that set point down. So it can take a little while for everything to settle back down. It can take a little while for us to actually just stabilize that weight and for our body to readjust. And then what we should find is that our weight will begin to come back off again. I think at that point when it happens, what we need to do is redouble our efforts because we can get a little bit burnt out, a little bit like low in mood, a little bit overwhelmed that things aren't happening how we want them to. That can make us perhaps reach for a little sneaky snack sometimes, or perhaps take our attention, or just feel like we deserve a treat. It's complete human behavior. We're all the same. There's no criticism here at all.
Yeah.
But we need to really put that focus in. So we need to get that protein right. So if protein's a thing you need to work on, build the protein in. Maybe look at how many carbs you're having. Are you having maybe too many right now for you? Are you getting those healthy fats? Are you drinking enough water? Hydration is really important for weight loss. If you're doing all of that, then it may be worth just doing a sort of like BMR calculation. And we've got a link we can share with you. Because also, when you've lost weight, your body is not going to need as much fuel to maintain your weight. So, a fact for everyone, if you've lost 1 or 2 stone, actually you are not going to need the same amount of food. So, it's really important just to check in every now and then and make sure that you're eating an amount of food that is relevant to your body weight as it is now. And that sounds so obvious, but it is something that we sometimes lose sight of. So it's worth just checking in with yourself around that. There have been no studies as to whether Manjaro is helpful, as far as I know, in menopause or perimenopause, because it's such a new medication.
Yeah.
But actually, we're very lucky. We do get to speak to a lot of experts. And I think one of the things that we know that something like a GLP-1, which Mounjaro, Wegovy are, is that it can really help in terms of appetite control, really help in terms of helping with insulin sensitivity, can help in terms of reducing visceral fat, and also cardiovascular health and mood can be improved
Mm.
for some people. It isn't a wonder cure. It sounds like it is, and I'm not certainly selling it as one. I think we can do all of those things by eating that core meal plan, if I'm really honest. But we're all in different phases of life. We've all got things going on that are different. So it's different for everyone. But they can, so I think from those perspectives, they can be helpful, but there's no specific research that I have looked at or found recently that would say, yes, this is the answer.
Yeah.
And would you agree, Rupa?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, cool. So I think we've answered that question
Yeah.
too. Uh,
Sleep.
yeah, sleep. Shall we go to the sleep? Need
Sleep
six
is,
solid hours or total sleep. I wake up, go to the bathroom several times a night. That's such a menopause thing, isn't it? It can
mm,
also be a weight loss thing. People will often pee more at night when they're losing weight, which is
yeah.
positive and annoying, all rolled into one.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Rupert?
I think it's, yeah, I mean, it's important to have sleep throughout the night. I mean, if you do have to get up and go to the bathroom, it's something that can't help. But as long as you get back to sleep, and have a deep sleep, rested sleep. That's really important. And like I said, I think that there's lots of things that you can do to incorporate. I always encourage women. And I'd advise women that the bedtime routine before you get into your bed to always have some sort of routine to really relax, and keep away from the obvious, like your phones and your laptops and your iPads, whatever it is, all the screens. Just keep them away. Try to switch off from them at least an hour or half an hour before you get into your bed. A lot of us jump into our beds and we're still quite tense and alert, aren't we? Our body's very tense. We're not, fully relaxed from our shoulders and our neck. They're tense. Our brains and our thinking is very much alert as well. The idea is to get into your bed more relaxed, and not really thinking about anything that needs to be doing next day, whatever it is, and have that time for yourself. And that self-care is really important to get that good deep sleep and rested sleep.
Very
Definitely.
much. Yeah, I agree with all of that. And 6 hours of sleep is, whether it's interrupted or not, is still,
It
really
is.
good.
Yep.
So, yeah, definitely. If you can get to bed half an hour earlier and that gives you that extra little bit of uninterrupted sleep, then go for
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Yep.
We've got loads of questions here. So
Yeah.
really brilliant. we've sort of picked up on the GLP-1s. I'm not going to pick up any more, I don't think, around GLP-1s. There are, you know, how does HRT affect your appetite, metabolism, weight gain, weight loss? Anything to be aware of in terms of HRT and food? Rupert, any thoughts for you around that?
Where is the question? I've lost the,
It's
I've
right
cropped
at the bottom of the Q&A box.
so that I can. Oh, okay. Yes. How does HRT affect your appetite metabolism? Now, there isn't any true evidence with HRT actually causing weight gain. What normally happens is that when you start HRT, even in for a couple of months of starting, it can cause water retention, which tends to feel like you're putting on weight. Certain HRT products may contribute to weight changes. And what normally happens is I advise a lot of women to try the HRT for a good like 3 to 6 months. If they're still finding that there is water retention or that weight change, then it's probably a good idea to change your HRT to a different progestogen, which normally is the cause of that. So it's there's no set answer for that. As you start feeling better in yourself with HRT, um, some women just tend to look at their diet and their appetite in general, and things just start rolling into place in that way. So you're looking after yourself more, you're keeping more active, and that in itself just helps with that weight management as well. But there is no significant evidence directly linking HRT with weight gain.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really good. Interesting. Somebody's asking a question in the chat box about healthful foods for gut health. So I would say all of the vegetables, all of the colourful vegetables above ground,
Yeah.
they're less dense in terms of starch, so they're lower glycemic naturally. Um, Beans, lentils, pulses can be really helpful.
Mm.
If you have trouble tolerating those, try soaking them and cooking them after you've soaked them for 12 hours. That can reduce the
Okay.
lectins in them. And then healthy fats to really support that anti-inflammatory situation we want to create in our guts. And then also, finally, fermented foods are brilliant. But if they're new to you, you want to bring them in minute amounts to begin with, because our guts will react sometimes not as positively as we want them to. We
Hmm.
want to just treat our guts with care and bring things in gently.
Good.
Yeah,
I
somebody
like what
asked,
Lisa said, by the way, that she sets her alarm to 9:30 to remind her to switch off her electronics. I like that, Lisa. Well done. That's really
oh,
good.
and Shelby, you've got a weighted vest and ankle weights. That is really,
Oh,
are
you're
you
brilliant.
using that ankle weights for walking, Shelby? I'm really interested. If you're still, do let me know. Um, Noting phytoestrogens are not good if I've had cancer. Now, Rosie, that is a very specific and very one-to-one question. There is lots of research around phytoestrogens. So you want to have the fermented phytoestrogens. My understanding is they're not then not recommended, but I would talk to somebody about your health on a one-to-one level. Just book a one-to-one session with somebody, because actually you can get some really, really specific advice, and I would really recommend you to do that. Somebody is saying, Linda, you're saying you struggle with fibromyalgia, so you really struggle with out wearing yourself out completely. I would just break it down. And oh, you couldn't find the exercise. We'll make sure we bring the link along for those next week. Okay, sorry. So if you're really struggling to exercise because you really have a health issues, that are really compounding and making life difficult, do what you can do. Just start from wherever you are now and do the tiniest amount. It isn't a competition. I think that's the thing we forget. The only people we need to try and improve our health for is
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yep.
So wherever you are now is your starting point, and every little thing you manage to do can really help. And it may be that actually the first step in your journey is to really balance your insulin, to calm down that inflammation,
Mhm.
to really boost in those healthy fats and see if that helps.
Brilliant.
There's lots of things you can do nutritionally for fibromyalgia, so have a look at that as well. Great. Thank you, everyone. Lots of Manjaro. Somebody's sweating a lot more on Manjaro. I would have to go and look at whether we've got any evidence of that. I can't think off the top of my head.
Uh-huh.
Calcium up. How can you keep calcium up? Yeah, calcium osteoporosis, massive issue in menopause, or a known factor for some people in menopause. So resistance, weight-bearing exercise, really important to
Mm,
prevent osteoporosis. Calcium-rich foods, all of the dark green leafy vegetables. Tofu is really a great source of calcium. Salmon, the bones in oily fish, really important. So all of those things really important to include. Um, yes, calcium is available in dairy, so you could have some really healthy natural yogurt as well, and that would bring in some nice level of calcium if you're happy to eat it.
mm.
So,
I
hope.
just wanted to, sorry, I just want to touch on vitamins somebody's asked for during the menopause, and just hormones in general. So someone's asked what happens to the hormones when you're postmenopausal. Is there light at the end of the tunnel? Definitely. So when you're postmenopausal, your estrogen and progesterone levels are literally on the floor. There's nothing there. Your ovaries are no longer producing any of these hormones. And what normally happens is if you are experiencing symptoms, like I described earlier on, it's probably best to discuss treatment such as HRT. So that will start giving you and replacing the hormones that you need and helping you feel better. And don't forget that there is the benefits of HRT in the long run as well. The long-term health benefits is it helps with heart health and it helps with your bone health. And there's very good evidence around that.
And also memory as well.
Memory. So I was just going to say there's lots of studies being done around dementia and memory in that way as well, um, which are still ongoing. But HRT, definitely discuss your options with your healthcare provider. I've given you a link to the questionnaire already, but in that website there is also information on different aspects of your symptoms and HRT in general and the menopause. Vitamin D, I always encourage. As a pharmacist, I'm always supplements should really multivitamins I'm not a great fan of because I think you should get a lot from your diet as Ruth has explained, but vitamin D is something that we're not going to get much from our diet, so incorporating vitamin D into your daily regime is very good as well, and it helps with your mood and your energy levels in general.
Yeah. We're over time now, so I'm so sorry
We
we
are.
haven't had time to finish all of your questions. Hopefully, we've managed to answer as many of them that is helpful for the majority of you today. Apologies if we've missed your particular question. Do come back and bring it to our attention on another webinar.
Yep.
We
Yep.
really want to support you as much as we can. Thanks to Roxanne about the goji berry tip. That working for you. Really nice to have some
Yeah.
feedback. So thank you. Brilliant. And Ripa, thank you so much for bringing your brain and shedding
Oh,
your
I don't know if my brain was here, but I'm motivated to exercise now for sure.
light. Your brain
And
was
I will.
definitely here, and we really appreciate it. And
Thank,
thanks to Julia and Rabdino for sharing all the links. And we will be back as normal next Monday at 1. So thank you so much.
thank
There
you,
will
Ruth.
be a recording coming out of this at some point. Take care, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye. Bye.